Okay, the left one is not going to do it. We have a Flickr group that will share the pictures that the photographers are taking from this conference. If you made any pictures, make sure to contribute them to the group. So now on to the talk. I gave a talk 2 years ago at this London Perl workshop, and it was like complaining that we don't do anything useful at all. This talk is about fighting legacy and witnessing that somebody in your room says, I should have used objects. If you're in the evangelism, that is something that you won't believe to hear anymore. I will not talk about the bad things that I found in our code base. This was probably one of them, and I believe it is still there. This is a real-world application. It has been used for a certain amount of time. We're not using them anymore and refactored everything. So the code base that we're talking about is, it has some bugs, it is huge, it needs some love, and fortunately the development has been finished on this one. The interesting part, like, it has been finished means like the funding went over, we finished the product, and there was enough money to sell it, so that is a great thing. The problem in terms like when you are going to fight legacy, it's always like, oh, it's running in production. So we decided to look at the code and refactor it. I was starting with it, and after I saw the first class, I quit the company. I got back 10 months later and go to fix it and accept the challenge. This is probably, I mean, it's a good part. They are using objects. Unfortunately, the classes are not seen to be really well designed. So I scrolled down a little bit and I found accessors to it. I mean, that is great. They're not messing around with object data directly, but they're, well, just writing a bunch of classes that are just having the accessors, so they are using data classes. So scrolling down a little bit further, there must be something like, when they're going to take things, there must be a class attribute validation, and I found it. From this code, you probably see that this was written by someone who was into Java, at least if you look at the different things, in terms of like, what is the method name? That was their way. So they created the object, and then they were trying to run this method, and if this thing returned the proper string, they know how to do it. So in the meantime, a few things have been changed. I mean, it's always the same. Business has some wishes, things can happen. You do have bugs, which is going to be fine. And usually there are some buzzwords, except if you're running old Perl-style applications. And all the Java guys are putting the pressure on you, and they wanted a REST API to legacy code, which is great. Do something like this. And basically that's what they really want. So we started to refactor the things, and there are a few things that are really great, and I want to share them with you. Like, we had working code that was running in production, and we know what the code was doing, so we had a certain behavior, and the behavior was always the same. And we had a vision in terms like, we want a REST API that is going to respond with JSON. So we started in doing the refactoring process on this thing. The first part that we do was get a new toolchain. That was the one that we're using. Modulicers, just, it's very easy to get into it. We had some individual training classes for certain members, like what is the way that you want to apply moves. We started with
Jingle bells.
Switch to Moo later, and we basically just proxied everything to the old command line style application. And there was something interesting later, like somebody was looking for shortcuts, and he looked in the proxy code. He was not using objects at all, but he was messing around with hash refs and arrays of them. Kind of interesting. It took him 4 hours to fix the test suite, to get something working, and finally he said, and that was the point where you say, like, you have done something wrong in the evangelism term. It took him just 30 minutes to fix up everything. So at the end, we're really happy in what we achieved. We refactored all the old code, And I never thought that I would ever hear this, and the discussion about shall we use Perl or not is just over. And that is great. We're talking about what can we do for the next time. We have more ideas. So whenever you're going to do something, think of behavior and refactor your legacy application and check for the behavior of it.